It began with a knock. Not the kind you notice right away, just two soft taps, so quiet it almost blended into the rustle of the morning trees. Nora was halfway through her coffee, still wrapped in her robe, when she heard it. She opened the front door expecting maybe a neighbor or the delivery guy dropping off a package. Instead, there was a wicker basket sitting right on the doormat. At first, she thought someone had left groceries. But then it moved. She gasped. Nestled inside, wrapped in a soft flannel blanket patterned with tiny yellow ducks, was a newborn baby. Red-faced, squirming, with her fists clenched and eyes shut tight. Taped to the handle of the basket was a crumpled piece of lined paper. Just 3 words in shaky handwriting: "Save her. Please." Nora's voice caught in her throat as she called out for her husband. David came rushing down the hall in gym shorts and a confused expression that vanished the moment he saw the baby. He dropped to his knees beside the basket. "Is she alive?" he whispered. Nora nodded, tears forming before she could stop them. They didn't speak for a long moment. Then they moved as one, lifting the baby gently into their arms and bringing her inside. David called the police. A patrol officer showed up within the hour. She was kind, maybe late 40s, with a lined face and soft voice. She asked for details, took some photos, and inspected the baby briefly. "Looks healthy," she said. "We'll open a case. Might take some time to find the mother. In the meantime, we'll place her in temporary foster care." Nora didn't even hesitate. "She can stay with us," she said. David glanced at her, then nodded. "At least until things are figured out." They didn't mean to get attached. But something about this baby felt like fate. Like a second chance. It had been 5 years since their last round of IVF failed, for years since they quietly packed up the nursery that never got used. Nora started calling the baby Hope, just casually at first. "Hope's hungry," or "Hope's bit up again." But by the second night, it didn't feel like a nickname anymore. It felt real. David began reading to her in the evenings. Nora hummed lullabies without even realizing it. The house, once too quiet, was filled with tiny sounds: coos, squeaks, soft breathing in the night. On the 4th morning, Officer Jensen returned. His face told them what his words confirmed. "We have a lead on the mother," he said, standing awkwardly in the doorway. "It's early, but she may have left the baby intentionally. Maybe out of fear or something else. Still, if she comes forward and proves she's fit, we're required to reunite them." David's stomach dropped. Nora went pale. But they nodded. "Of course," David said, voice tight. "Whatever's best for her." But that night, Nora stood in the hallway outside the nursery and said quietly, "I don't want to give her back." David didn't say anything. He didn't have to. The look in his eyes was enough. The next morning, a letter came in the mail. No return address. Just "to the occupants" scrawled across the front. Inside was a photo. A photo of Hope wrapped in the same duck-patterned blanket, lying on their front porch, taken from a distance. On the back of the photo, scribbled in the same handwriting as the note from the basket, were 2 words: "She's mine." They stared at the photo for a long time. Nora held it like it might burn through her fingers, while David read the message on the back over and over again. "She's mine." The words were written in that same shaky, hurried script. No signature. No explanation. Just a message, bare, chilling, final. They'd been so careful. No social media posts. No neighbors told. Just them and the baby inside their quiet suburban home. And yet, someone had taken a photo of Hope. From the street. From the shadows. Someone had been watching. David checked the security camera near the porch. Nothing. The feed skipped. Glitched. A full 2-hour window gone. Deleted. He felt a drop of cold sweat trickle down his back. "This wasn't random," he muttered. "Whoever left her here, they're still around." Nora, still clutching the photo, whispered, "What if she's dangerous?" But neither of them said the thing they were both thinking: what if she wants her back? Later that day, Child Services called. They had no leads, they said. No fingerprints on the basket, no hits on missing infants. The baby's blood work was normal. No drugs. No signs of neglect or abuse. "It's like she came out of thin air," the social worker said. But that night, the doorbell rang at 3:07 a.m. David jumped from bed. He looked out through the peephole. No one. He opened the door cautiously. Sitting there, right where the basket had been, was a new envelope. Inside, another photo. This time, it was of Nora, taken through the living room window. She was asleep on the couch, Hope cradled in her arms. David's heart slammed against his ribs. He rushed inside and locked the door. Checked every window, every curtain, every door twice. Nora sat up groggily, startled by his panic. But one look at his face made her fully awake. He showed her the photo. She didn't scream. She didn't cry. She just held Hope closer and whispered, We can't let her go. The next day, Officer Jensen came by again. She had questions. She mentioned that someone matching a vague description had been seen loitering on a traffic cam 3 blocks away 2 nights ago. Short, female, wearing a hoodie, carrying something small. But they couldn't confirm if it was connected. We're working on it, she said. But David noticed the way she glanced at Hope before leaving. Long, hesitant, like she was wondering something she wasn't ready to say. Later that night, Nora brought up something she hadn't said out loud before. What if the mother isn't stable? She asked. What if she didn't give Hope up for love, but for something else? What if she's not just watching, but planning something? David didn't answer. He was staring at his laptop screen. On it was an adoption form he had pulled up, reading a thread titled, "How to Keep a Foundling Child When the System Wants to Take Them Back." And then the phone rang. An unknown number. Nora picked up before David could stop her. There was silence on the line, just soft breathing. Then a whisper. "You have no idea what you've done." Click. Nora stood frozen. David walked over slowly and took the phone from her hand. On the caller ID, the number had already vanished. Disconnected. That night, David placed a chair under the front doorknob. He didn't sleep. Nora kept Hope in their bed between them. And at exactly 4:11 a.m., the baby monitor crackled to life. A woman's voice, soft, trembling, broken, whispered through the static. "You're keeping her from me." The voice on the baby monitor confirms the mother is watching. From inside the house? David lunged for the baby monitor, yanking the cord from the wall as if it were a venomous snake. Static filled the room for a second longer. Then silence. Hope stirred in her sleep but didn't wake. Nora sat upright in bed, her hand over her mouth, eyes wide. "That was her," she whispered. "She's been inside the house." David didn't want to say it, but the baby monitor signal only reached so far. For that voice to come through, the speaker had to be nearby, maybe even on the same floor. He grabbed the baseball bat from their closet and swept the house inch by inch. Closets, crawl spaces, the garage. Nothing. No signs of entry. No broken locks. But the feeling clung to him, like someone had been there and left just before he turned the corner. The next day, Nora took Hope to the pediatrician under a different name. David went to Home Depot and spent over $600 on motion detectors, new locks, and window alarms. When Officer Jensen stopped by again, David asked for police surveillance. She hesitated. "You've taken in a child under emergency custody, and now you're reporting threats. If we escalate this, we'll have to inform child services. If the mother files a claim, it could fast-track removal." David clenched his jaw. "You mean if we protect her, they'll take her?" Jensen didn't answer, but her silence was louder than any yes. That evening, David finally opened up about something he'd been avoiding. "We don't know anything about this woman," he said, pacing the kitchen while Hope napped in Nora's arms. "What if this isn't just abandonment? What if it's a game to her? Or worse?" Nora nodded slowly. "What if she's waiting for us to love her just enough to destroy us when she takes her back?" The air between them felt heavier than it had in days. They both knew what neither wanted to admit. They were already in too deep. Then, around 9 p.m., something new happened. The hallway camera, recently installed, sent a motion alert. David checked the feed. Nothing. But the timestamp was unmistakable. It had picked up something. Or someone. A faint blur in the upper corner of the frame near the attic hatch. He replayed the footage 5 times. The shape looked like a sleeve. Or hair. David grabbed the bat and the flashlight again. Nora followed this time, Hope in her carrier on the dining table. The lights dimmed. The ladder to the attic creaked under David's weight. The flashlight beam danced across dusty boxes, old Christmas decorations, forgotten suitcases. And then it caught something that made his skin crawl. A baby rattle. Pink. Plastic. Covered in dust, like it had been up there for a while. David had never seen it before. He turned around slowly, and noticed the corner of the attic floor had been recently disturbed. The boards were cleaner there. He stepped closer and saw faint scratches, like something heavy had been dragged. Kneeling down, he pulled at the board. It was loose, Underneath, there was a shallow cavity lined with newspaper clippings, all of them about missing infants, abandoned babies, some with headlines circled in red ink, others torn as if in rage. In the center was a single item that chilled him more than anything else. Pacifier, the same brand they used for hope. And underneath it, a folded paper with just one line. She was never yours to love. The attic reveals someone has been watching, planning, maybe even living there. David didn't sleep that night. He sat in the hallway, back against the nursery door, the baseball bat in one hand and the pacifier in the other. Nora stayed curled up in the rocking chair beside Hope's crib, too afraid to even close her eyes. Every sound in the house, creaking pipes, settling floorboards, distant wind, felt sinister now. The attic wasn't just storage anymore. It was a message. Someone had been there. Someone had planned this. The next morning, David took the newspaper clippings to Officer Jensen. She examined them silently, her brows furrowing deeper by the second. "Where did you find these?" she asked. He told her about the attic. Her voice turned tight. "You need to be very careful. There's a difference between a scared mother and someone with obsessive behavior. This?" She held up one of the articles. The red ink circling the words, "Safe haven laws challenged by biological parents." "This looks like fixation." David felt something inside him shift. This wasn't just about hope. This was about control, about possession. Jensen agreed to escalate the case. She filed an emergency request for temporary surveillance outside the home. But she also reminded him of the reality. If the biological mother comes forward, no matter how unstable, she still has legal standing. Unless you're prepared to fight for guardianship, and even then, it's a long shot. David left the station with his heart in his throat. Back home, Nora had gone through the clippings again, noticing something David hadn't. A single article had a phone number written faintly in the margin, almost faded. Nora tried it. It rang once, then disconnected. When she dialed again, it went to voicemail. A woman's voice, calm, measured. "If you found this, it's because you want the truth. But you may not survive it." Nora dropped the phone. That night, while installing one more camera near the nursery, David decided to check the footage from the day Hope arrived. Something about that morning had been gnawing at him. Why hadn't they seen the drop-off? They were home. The porch cam had been malfunctioning. But the living room cam, facing the window, should have picked up movement. He pulled the backup footage and slowed it frame by frame. At 5:12 a.m., the screen flickered, just for a moment. Then it froze. But on one frame, barely visible, was the silhouette of a woman. Long coat, hood up, standing at the edge of the porch. Her posture wasn't that of someone sneaking around. She stood still, staring at the window, not the door. The window, directly into the living room, where Nora had been sleeping on the couch. The timestamp showed she stood there for 6 minutes. She didn't knock. She didn't leave the basket right away. She watched, and just before she walked away, she leaned in toward the window, her face catching a sliver of moonlight. David froze the frame and zoomed in. That's when he saw it. Her eyes weren't angry or scared. They were smiling. He staggered back from the desk, his stomach lurching. Nora stepped in just as the image came into focus. "David, that's the same woman from my dream." David blinked. "What dream?" Nora hesitated. "The night before Hope arrived. I dreamed someone handed me a baby, said she was mine now, said her name was Hope." David stared at her. Then the porch camera pinged. Motion detected. He clicked the live feed. There, standing in the exact same spot, same coat, same posture, was the woman. Only this time, she was holding something in her hands. A birth certificate. The woman returns with a birth certificate, ready to claim what she believes is hers. David didn't open the door. He watched from the window, barely breathing. The woman stood on the porch with eerie calm, one hand holding the birth certificate, the other gently resting at her side like she had all the time in the world. Her hood was down now. Long dark hair, pale skin, sunken eyes. She looked no older than 30, but something about her seemed worn, faded. like she had been living in a world that had given up on her long ago. Nora cradled Hope in her arms just beyond the staircase. "Don't let her in," she whispered, her voice breaking. "David, don't." He nodded. But he also knew this was no longer something they could ignore. Not when she came back. Not when she brought proof. She tucked the paper gently between the door and the frame, then stepped back. Slowly, carefully, almost reverently. Then she walked away. No knocking. No yelling. Just a quiet exit. Her steps vanishing down the sidewalk like she'd already planned this moment in her mind 100 times. David waited 10 minutes before he opened the door and retrieved the document. The paper was crisp, freshly printed, official seal in the corner. His hands trembled as he read the name. Infant name, Lydia Ray, mother, Madeline Voss. Date of birth, March 18th. Nora's breath hitched behind him. "Lydia Ray," she whispered. That's the name I thought of when I first held her. "I didn't tell you. I said Hope instead. But in my head, she was always Lydia." David turned to her slowly. "You're saying you knew this name? Before this?" "I dreamed it," Nora said. "Not once. Every night since she arrived." David stared at the document. Something felt wrong. Not just because of the timing or the impossible connection between the name and Nora's dreams, but because the document itself had a watermark in the bottom right corner. Barely visible. But it was there. A symbol David recognized from his days working in document design, a placeholder seal. A forgery. He flipped the page. On the back was a message, handwritten in red pen. "I told you. She's mine, but I'm willing to share." He dropped it like it was on fire. That night, they didn't sleep. Instead, David called every contact he had. A friend in legal aid. A former colleague who now worked in cybersecurity. Nora called a trauma counselor she trusted. They needed answers. Fast. But the most important call came from Officer Jensen. "We've got a problem," she said. "We traced Madeline Voss. She does exist, but she's not supposed to be anywhere near your neighborhood." David gripped the phone tighter. "What do you mean?" "She was committed last year," Jensen said slowly. "Psychiatric hold. After abandoning her newborn at a fire station 3 towns over. She disappeared during a supervised visit with the child's foster family. There's a warrant out for her. She's not just unstable, David. She's dangerous." Nora was pale, clutching Hope like a lifeline. David whispered, "Are you saying she's done this before?" "No," Jensen said. "I'm saying she's never stopped." The line went quiet. Then the baby monitor crackled again. Static. Then a faint lullaby. Not from Nora. Not from David. A soft female voice humming a melody neither of them recognized until Nora turned ghost white and whispered, "That's the same lullaby I sang when I lost our baby." Madeline somehow knows Nora's past grief, using it to connect or manipulate. The lullaby drifted through the baby monitor in a slow, haunting loop. Not mechanical, not recorded, it was someone singing, live, somewhere close. Nora froze in place, her eyes filling with tears. "How would she know that song?" she whispered. I never sang it to anyone," but she trailed off, her grip on Hope tightening. David didn't answer. He was already pulling up the live security feeds. The nursery cam showed nothing unusual. Hope's crib was empty, she was safe in Nora's arms. The porch cam, the living room cam, the hallway still and quiet. But the camera at the far end of the backyard, the one facing the tree line behind their house, flickered. And then she appeared. Madeline. Standing just inside the woods. Close enough to see the house. Clutching something in her arms. It was a second baby blanket. The exact same one Hope had been wrapped in the night she arrived. David bolted outside before Nora could stop him. He ran barefoot across the lawn, the cold biting through his skin. "Stop," he shouted into the trees. Madeline. She didn't flinch. Just stood there, cradling the blanket like it still carried a child. "You have no right," he yelled. "You left her. You gave her up." At that she smiled. Softly. Sadly. "I gave her to someone who could love her," she said. "But now you love her too much to let her go. Don't you see? That's exactly what I wanted." David stared at her, heart pounding. "What are you saying?" "I was never coming back to take her," Madeline whispered. "I came to see if you'd break the way I did. To see if someone else could love her as much as I do without destroying themselves." He stepped closer. "Why us?" She didn't answer right away. Then she said, "Because I saw your names in the hospital file. From your miscarriage. I remembered Nora's voice in the waiting room. I knew what you'd lost. And I knew what she could give you back." David felt sick. "You stalked us." "I chose you," she said, and the softness in her voice was almost enough to make him forget the danger. "But now you have to choose. The state will take her if they know I'm still alive. But if I disappear, truly disappear, she's yours. Forever. You'll never hear from me again. But you'll never hear from the law either. David's breath caught. What do you mean disappear? Madeline gently laid the blanket on the forest floor. There's a car at the bottom of the quarry. I've already written the note. They'll think I jumped. He stepped forward instinctively, but she held up a hand. This is the only way. I was never meant to be her mother. You were. But if I stay alive, you'll lose her. They'll take her. And I can't let her go to strangers. I trust you. I chose you. Then she turned and vanished into the woods, the darkness swallowing her whole. David stood in the silence for a long time before walking back to the house. Nora was waiting at the door, Hope asleep on her shoulder. He didn't say what Madeline had offered. He just looked at his wife and asked, would you break the law to keep her? Nora didn't hesitate. Yes. 3 days later, news broke. A woman's car was found abandoned at the quarry. A note left on the seat. No body recovered. The story spread fast. Mental health. Motherhood. Desperation. The police offered grief, not pursuit. The case went cold. 6 months later, a judge approved David and Nora's emergency petition for adoption. The system barely looked twice. They named her Lydia Hope Vossmiller. And on the first night after the papers were signed, just after midnight, the baby monitor came to life one last time. No static. No voice. Just the lullaby. And then, silence. Forever. Madeline keeps her word, but her presence lingers like a ghost blessing their new beginning.